What happens when you begin to access parts of yourself that you've spent a lifetime denying? What emerges when the mask of performance starts to crack, revealing aspects of your nature that don't fit your self image? And how do you integrate these shadow elements into a more complete, authentic expression of who you truly are? I'm Mark Roach, and welcome to the final episode of our Authenticity Breakthrough series here on Transcendent. Throughout this journey, we've explored how much of our daily life is performance, how techniques like Meisner's repetition can break through these patterns, the neuroscience behind authentic presence, and how human design reveals your unique path to authenticity. Today, we're addressing perhaps the most challenging aspect of this work, integrating the shadow elements that emerge as you move toward greater authenticity. My own journey with shadow work began through necessity rather than choice. The trauma that I experienced in early childhood created powerful defense mechanisms, particularly channeling anger into performance on the football field. This served me well in many ways, nearly leading to a professional athletic career, but it also disconnected me from vulnerable aspects of myself that I deemed unsafe to express. When I began serious acting training and therapy, these disowned parts started emerging in ways I couldn't control or understand. I was disorienting and sometimes frightening. Who was I if I was not the strong, confident persona that had been cultivating in my early life? What would happen if I allowed vulnerability, uncertainty, or tenderness to exist alongside my strength? Carl Jung defined the shadow as the aspects of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or disowned, often because they didn't fit with our family's expectations or society's norms. These rejected parts don't disappear. They simply get pushed into the unconscious, where they influence our behavior in ways we don't recognize. The shadow isn't inherently negative. It contains not only our socially unacceptable impulses, but also positive qualities that didn't receive validation or recognition. A child raised to be tough might shadow not only vulnerability, but also creativity, intuition, and emotional sensitivity, all potential valuable aspects of their nature. What makes shadow work so challenging is that we've built our identity around not being these disowned parts. We say, I'm not an angry person, or I'm not selfish, or I'm not creative, defining ourselves in opposition to these rejected aspects. When they begin to emerge, they threaten our very sense of who we are. In my case, the shadow contained not just vulnerability, but also profound spirituality and sensitivity that didn't fit with my athletic persona. I'd learned to channel anger effectively, but it disconnected from other emotional states and seemed that these other emotional states that I disconnected from seemed dangerous or weak to me. Through acting training, particularly the Meisner repetition exercise, these shadow elements began emerging spontaneously. In one memorable session, a simple repetition exercise triggered a profound emotional reaction that had nothing to do with the actual words being exchanged. Something in my partner's presence had accessed a part of myself that I'd been denying for decades. This wasn't just emotionally significant, it was spiritually transformative. I began to recognize that what I'd been seeking through external achievement was actually an internal connection that had been available all along, but hidden in my shadow. Gurdjieff understood this process in terms of fragmentation and integration. He observed that most humans exist in a fragmented state with different eyes taking control at different situations. True consciousness, in his view, requires integrating these fragments into a more unified whole. What makes Gurdjieff's approach particularly valuable is his emphasis on embodied awareness. He recognized that shadow elements aren't just mental constructs. They're stored in the body as tension patterns, movement habits, and energetic blocks. His sacred dances and movements were designed to bring awareness to these physical patterns, creating the possibility of integration through embodied practice. Modern neuroscience confirms this embodied understanding of the shadow. Research on implicit memory shows that emotional experiences, particularly traumatic ones, are stored in subcortical brain regions in the autonomic nervous system. These memories aren't typically accessible through verbal processing alone. They require somatic approaches that engage the body directly. The polyvagal theory developed by Stephen Porges explains why shadow integration requires feeling safe in our bodies. When we encounter disowned parts of ourselves, the nervous system often perceives threat, triggering protective responses like flight or fight or freeze. Creating safety through embodied practices allows the nervous system to remain regulated while engaging with challenging material. This is why purely cognitive approaches to shadow work often fall short. You can't think your way into integration. You need approaches that engage the body's wisdom directly. Human design offers precise insight into your specific shadows based on your open centers. These are the areas where you're designed to take in and amplify energy from others, often leading to confusion about what's authentically you versus what you've absorbed from your environment. For example, if you have an open heart center, you may have developed a shadow around worthiness, either overcompensating to prove your value or diminishing yourself to avoid competition. If you have an open G center, your shadow might involve identity itself, taking on others' identities while losing connection to your own direction. Understanding these specific patterns allows you to recognize when you're operating from shadow and when you're expressing your authentic nature. This awareness is the first step towards integration. This is where Meisner's approach to acting becomes a powerful tool for shadow integration. The repetition exercise creates a container where shadow elements can emerge safely within the structure of the exercise because you're just doing the exercise. The ego's defenses are temporarily bypassed, allowing disowned aspects to surface. When playing characters, actors often access shadow elements that they've denied in their own personal lives. A person who identifies as never angry might access rage through a character. Someone who sees themselves as always rational might express profound emotion through a role. What makes this approach so valuable is that it allows you to experience these disowned aspects without immediately identifying with them. You can observe, this anger is emerging through me, rather than concluding, I am an angry person. This creates space for integration without overwhelming your identity structure. Let me offer you a practice for shadow integration that combines elements from all these approaches. Number one, choose a quality that you believe is not you, perhaps anger, vulnerability, playfulness, or ambition. Two, stand in front of a mirror and adopt the physical posture that embodies this quality in your view. How would someone with this quality stand? How would they hold their face, their hands? And then three, begin to move slowly, allowing this quality to express through your body. This isn't about acting or performing. It's about allowing the energy to move through you authentically without judgment. 4, notice any resistance. Notice the judgment, if any, or discomfort that may arise. These reactions often reveal where your identity is threatened by this disowned aspect. Speak from this embodied state. Begin with, I am, a statement that begins with I am, or like I am angry, or I am vulnerable. And notice how it feels to give voice. Notice how it feels to give voice to this disowned part. And then after 5 or 10 minutes, return to your own normal posture. Take a few deep breaths, get some distance, and then journal about this experience without analyzing or judging it. What emerged? What happened? What surprised you? And what felt threatening or maybe liberating? Now, this practice derived from both acting techniques and somatic psychology creates a safe container for exploring shadow elements through embodied awareness. True integration isn't about eliminating shadow. It's about expanding your capacity to hold seemingly contradictory aspects of yourself simultaneously. You can be both strong and vulnerable, both rational and emotional, both independent and connected. This integration happens not through force, but through awareness and acceptance. As you recognize and embrace disowned aspects of yourself, they gradually lose their charge. What once seemed threatening becomes simply another facet of your complex, multidimensional nature. The ultimate goal isn't perfection, but wholeness. It's wholeness. Not the absence of shadow, but the integration of all aspects of yourself into a more authentic, conscious expression of who you are, comfortably. As we conclude this Authenticity Breakthrough series, I want to acknowledge that this work isn't easy. Moving beyond performance to authentic presence requires some courage, patience, compassion for yourself. There will be moments of confusion. You'll encounter resistance and even grief as you release identifications that have defined you for years. But on the other side of this process lies something precious, the freedom to be fully yourself without the exhausting effort of maintaining a performance that no longer serves you. The practices we've explored, Meisner's repetition, self-observation, human design's awareness, and embodied shadow work, are tools for this journey. Use them with gentleness and curiosity, allowing your authentic nature to emerge at its own pace. If this series has resonated with you, please subscribe and share your experiences and your comments. This community is a place for genuine expression and support as we find our way toward greater authenticity. Remember, transcendence isn't about escaping your humanity, it's about embracing it fully, shadow and all. Your wholeness is already within you, waiting to be recognized and integrated. Until next time, I'm Mark Roach, wishing you courage on your journey toward authentic presence in a world of performance.